Before we begin this night prayer, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. I don't need solutions tonight, God. I just need somewhere to lay this down. I need to let my shoulders rest from holding what won't fix itself in the dark. I'm not here for answers. I'm here for mercy, for the kind of presence that doesn't ask me to perform or explain or justify what I'm carrying. Just a quiet room, a warm breath of you near me, and the holy space to say, this is too much. Not forever, maybe not even tomorrow, but right now, in this fragile place between today and whatever waits for me on the other side of sleep, I can't hold it anymore, and I need you to be okay with that. I need you to be the kind of God who doesn't flinch when my strength runs out, who stays when I unravel, who doesn't hurry me into hope, but lets me lie here long enough to remember you're not going anywhere. Because it's not that I haven't tried. It's not that I've avoided, neglected, abandoned the work. I've done what I could. I've spoken what I could. I've pushed and stayed calm and smiled and organized and carried conversations and timelines and hopes and disappointments and grief. And it's all too layered now to separate, too knotted to untangle at night. I don't know what part of this is mine anymore, and what part is just the echo of other people's expectations, needs, or silence. All I know is that the ache has gotten heavier than the hope, and I don't want to fight that feeling right now. I just want to let it land in your hands, not to get rid of it, but to stop being its only keeper. Maybe that's what surrender means tonight. Not giving up, but giving over. Not throwing it away, but placing it somewhere safer than my own weary spirit. I think I'm realizing I was never meant to be the sole container of this story. Even if no one else saw the weight, you did. You still do. You see how my thoughts circle the same helpless loops. You see how my body has been bracing all day, how it still hasn't exhaled. You see the micro decisions I keep making to stay calm, to stay productive, to stay kind. You see how much of that comes at a cost, and you're not asking for more. You're not pushing me to understand. You're not disappointed that I need rest before resolution. You're not tapping your foot, waiting for my faith to sound stronger. You're just here. That alone is undoing something in me. That alone is letting a tear fall without guilt. That alone is unclenching my hands from around what I thought I had to manage alone. So I'll tell you what I can. Not because you don't already know, but because I need to let it out of me. God, I'm carrying the fear that I've failed something I don't even fully understand. That I missed a window, or hurt someone unintentionally, or fell short of something sacred. I'm carrying the confusion of things that looked like they were getting better, only to collapse again. The weight of keeping it together for others who needed me to be calm when I wanted to scream. The memories that surface at night, not loud, but persistent. Little reminders that some wounds never fully closed, and maybe that's okay. But tonight they sting again. I'm carrying decisions I haven't made, answers I haven't found, and responsibilities I still don't know how to hold well. And all of it is heavier in the quiet. There's something about the silence that makes everything more vivid. The stillness that unwraps what I packed tightly all day. And maybe that's why I need you more now than ever. Not to silence the noise in my heart, but to sit with it, to be the stillness that doesn't ask for change, but allows space for feeling. To hold the weight with me, not as a fix, but as a companion, a faithful, unflinching, gentle witness. I think I've misunderstood strength for too long. I thought it meant always being able to carry it, always finding the bright side, always pushing through. But now, I see that strength might be this moment right here, the moment I finally let go, not of hope, but of the lie that I have to do it all, not of love, but of the need to prove myself worthy of being held. I'm already worthy. You already love me. You already stay, even when I bring nothing but a tangled mess of things I don't know how to sort, even when I'm quiet, even when I'm overwhelmed. And I want to believe that this kind of surrender is sacred, that this kind of rest is not weakness, but worship, that letting you in to hold the things I can't is the most honest kind of prayer. So tonight, God, I don't ask for clarity, I ask for company. I don't ask for light, I ask for warmth. I don't ask for solutions, I ask for softness. The softness that lets my mind stop spinning, my body stop tensing, and my spirit stop grasping. The softness that says, it's okay now, you don't have to hold this alone. I don't need a plan. I need a pillow for my soul. I need the kind of holy exhale that says, you've done enough for today. You've carried enough for now. You've cared, endured, stayed enough, and now it's time to be held. Held by something stronger than your fear, gentler than your guilt, deeper than your disappointment. Held by me. That's what I imagine you whispering. Not in loud declarations, but in the barely audible stillness that meets me at the edge of my exhaustion. The in-between moment when I finally loosen my grip, and you're already there, hands open, heart wide, patience infinite. You're not shocked by the mess. You're not calculating the cost of staying. You're not waiting for me to word it better or fix myself or get more faith. You're just here, not for the show, not for the strength, not for the performance. For me, and somehow, even that reminder begins to lift what I thought couldn't be lifted. Not because it's gone, but because you're in it now, and maybe that's what I've needed all along. And so, as I lay here with the night folding in around me, I give it all back to you. Not perfectly, not bravely, just honestly. I put the weight in your hands, and I let you be what I can't be right now. Steady, strong, still, hold what I can't, sit with what I'm still holding. Remind me, not with answers, but with presence, that I'm allowed to rest before it's resolved, that nothing about tonight disqualifies me from being held by you, that surrender isn't giving up, it's being gathered. Tonight feels like a threshold I keep standing at, one foot in the world of doing and holding and explaining, the other aching to cross over into a space where none of that is required. This quiet hour stretches like a corridor lined with memories, questions, half-finished prayers. My hands are tired of carrying, but my heart still hesitates to release. Maybe because I've been taught all my life that to let go is to lose. Yet here in the soft edges of this night, I sense another truth, that to let go is to find, not an answer, not a plan, but a presence who isn't watching from far off, but is already kneeling here beside my bed, hands extended not to take from me, but to take with me, to shoulder what my body and mind have reached their limit to hold. I think about the countless small weights I have collected today, without noticing, the sighs I didn't exhale, the words I swallowed instead of speaking, the moments when my chest tightened, but I kept moving anyway. They've piled up and now they press like invisible stones against my ribs. How gentle you are. Not to demand I sort each one before I hand it over. How patient you are to wait until I'm ready, even if my readiness is nothing more than a trembling whisper. I can't do this alone. The night itself seems to echo that whisper. The walls creak softly. The air feels heavier than it did in daylight, as if the world also lets down its guard when darkness settles. Streetlights spill a muted glow across the floor. Everything is slower, quieter, more honest, and in that honesty, I find you again. Not a distant God, not a checklist God, but a God whose nearness fills the room like a slow-burning candle, warm, steady, unhurried. You know how long I've tried to manage the unmanageable, to keep my composure while my insides tremble, to hold faith and fear in the same hands and pretend they don't weigh me down. Tonight I can't pretend. I can only be, and in being, I discover something I've missed, that surrender isn't a performance, but a posture of loosening my grip, unclenching my jaw, breathing out the air I've been holding since morning, a posture of leaning instead of standing tall, a posture of laying my head on your shoulder and letting my tears soak into the fabric of your robe without apology, because I am tired of apologizing for my humanity, tired of acting as though exhaustion is failure, tired of believing that real faith is a smile plastered over an ache. In the soft dark, I can finally be honest. I'm scared. I'm confused. I'm hurting. I'm at the end of myself. And still, you reach for the weight before I even name it. Still, you whisper, I know. I think about how many times you've held me without my knowing, the unseen ways you've steadied my steps when I was sure I'd fall, the quiet strength that kept me breathing when my own will was fading, the grace that didn't scold me for doubting, but met me inside the doubt, and I realized that tonight is no different. The weight may be heavier, but so is your nearness. So is your patience. So is your love. So here is my trembling offering, God, the heaviness of all the things I've been carrying, the half-finished stories, the unresolved conflicts, the unspoken grief, the guilt for not being enough, the shame for not being stronger, the fear that I'm disappointing someone, maybe even you, the endless mental rehearsals of what I could have done differently, the invisible labor of always holding it together, the future I can't control and the past I can't change. I place them, one by one, not neatly, but desperately, into your open hands. I don't know what you'll do with them. Maybe nothing tonight, maybe nothing for a long time, but even the act of releasing loosens something in me, like opening a window in a stuffy room, like loosening a knot I thought was permanent, like taking off a coat I forgot I was wearing. There is no dramatic moment, no thunderclap of deliverance, only a slow, steady easing, only the quiet sense that my soul is no longer alone in carrying itself. I feel the temptation to take it back even now, to start cataloging the weight again, measuring it, problem solving. That's how deep the habit runs. But you don't shame me for that either. You simply invite me again. Here, you seem to say, let me hold it a little longer. And I find myself whispering yes. Not a loud, confident yes, but a small, tired yes. The kind of yes that is really just the absence of no. The kind of yes that comes from having no strength left to argue with grace. Grace is what this night feels like. Grace in the way my breath slows. Grace in the way my shoulders soften. Grace in the way my heart remembers I am held. Not just my burdens, but me. I'm not a problem to be solved. I am a person to be loved, even now, especially now. And so, God, hold what I can't. Hold the silent prayers behind my eyes. Hold the aches I can't articulate. Hold the names of the people I'm worried about, but can't help tonight. Hold the dreams I'm afraid to hope for. Hold the disappointments I've buried under productivity. Hold my anger, my confusion, my fatigue, my tenderness. Hold me, not to fix me, not to change me, just to let me know I'm not alone under the weight. I don't know how long it will take for my soul to trust this. I don't know how many nights like this it will take for the habit of carrying alone to loosen its grip. But here, in this moment, I feel the smallest shift, the kind of shift that doesn't solve but soothes, the kind of shift that feels like the beginning of rest. And maybe that's enough for tonight. Not resolution, not clarity, just this gentle knowing I am allowed to stop holding everything. I am allowed to be. So I will lay here a little longer, I will breathe a little slower. I will imagine your hands underneath the weight of my day, my week, my life, and I will trust in this fragile and imperfect way that you will not drop me, that you will not roll your eyes at my weakness, that you will not disappear when I need you most. This is not a prayer for escape. It is a prayer for endurance, for companionship, for the holy relief of not being my own savior, for the courage to let myself be small in your presence and still believe I am loved. If I fall asleep mid-sentence, let that be my amen. If my last thought before drifting off is simply help, let that be my worship. If the only thing I manage to do tonight is release my grip, let that be enough. Stay here, God. Hold the weight I can't put down. And when the morning comes, whether the weight is lighter or still the same, remind me that I don't have to pick it up alone. It's strange how much energy it takes to rest, how much unlearning must happen before I can simply lie still and let myself be comforted. Even now, part of me searches for a reason to rise again, to rehearse tomorrow's concerns, to scroll through thoughts I've already lived 10 times today, as if worry might prepare me better than peace, as if clenching my jaw tight tonight will stop what might go wrong in the morning. But it never does. It only steals from me the one thing I'm being offered now, the chance to be quiet enough to be met by you, not for advice, not for change, but for nearness, just nearness. And what a strange, liberating thing it is to believe that nearness is enough. That you are not standing over me with charts and timelines, that you do not need an update on my progress before you decide whether to sit with me, that even in a state of undone, unshaped ache, you find me no less welcome. Maybe this is what love means at its most divine, not the kind that waits for healing before it moves closer, but the kind that builds a shelter while I'm still bleeding. I wonder how often you've watched me perform strength that you never asked for, how often you've seen me try to earn my worth in front of you, praying not with trust, but with pressure, afraid that if I don't pray hard enough, long enough, right enough, you might not come. But you were already here. You never needed the performance, you only needed the door open. And even when I kept it closed, you waited just beyond, holding the weight I couldn't admit was too much. Tonight, God, I open that door. Slowly, maybe awkwardly, but I open it, and I don't tidy the room before I let you in. I don't hide the clutter of my fear or brush dust over my disappointments. I just let you see me as I am, tired, stretched thin, a little unsure what to say, and longing, deeply longing, not to carry all this alone, because I can feel the long day pressing down through my chest, lingering in my bones, turning each thought into a knot I don't know how to untangle. I'm not asking you to unravel it for me. I'm just asking you to sit here beside it, to put a hand on my shoulder and say, you don't have to sort this now. That alone is healing. That alone is enough for my breathing to soften, my pulse to quiet, my heart to stop proving itself. And if I let myself go further into this space, I realize something I hadn't admitted until now. I'm not just tired from what happened today. I'm tired from what hasn't healed in a long time. I'm tired from carrying old stories I've told no one in years, from managing emotions that have no outlet, from smiling past moments that actually crushed something inside me. The weight I carry isn't just about deadlines or details or disappointments. It's also about delayed grief, compounded sadness. The silence that builds when you don't feel like you're allowed to say, I'm still not okay about that. But you, God, you give permission. You open your hands without rushing me to let go. You don't tell me which part to release first. You don't ask for the prettiest piece of my pain. You just say, all of it can come here. Even the parts that don't make sense, even the pain I thought I should be over by now. I think about how rare that kind of presence is. Even in loving human relationships, there's often a limit to what people can hold. But you, God, are limitless in compassion. You do not flinch when I name what still haunts me. You do not check the clock when I confess what still breaks me. You do not sigh when I cry over the same wound again. You stay, you listen, you cradle the weight without complaint. And that is what gives me breath again. Not that you solve it, but that you're not scared of it. Not that you take it all away, but that you let me lean on you while it still exists. So I'm leaning, not because I've run out of other options, but because I'm finally realizing this was always an option. And maybe the most sacred one, to lean into a God who won't resent my need. To rest into a grace that doesn't grow impatient. I don't know what the morning will bring. I don't know which of these weights will still be there when I wake up, but I know this: I will not wake up alone, and the weight, even if it lingers, will not be mine to carry alone. Let that be enough for tonight. Let that be the soft ground beneath my rest. Each one I name not to fix, but to release. Not because I expect you to erase them in the night, but because I know you can hold what I can't. And if tomorrow I pick them up again, if my reflex is to reach for them as soon as I open my eyes, I ask that you gently remind me. We've already given those over, remember? And maybe that reminder will be enough for me to start the day differently. Maybe not lighter, but less alone. I think that's what I'm really learning here, that lightness doesn't always come from absence of burden. Sometimes it comes from presence. The presence of someone willing to carry it with me. And you are here, not far, not waiting for me to reach some emotional checkpoint. Just here, tonight, holding what I place in your hands without judgment. Holding me, even as I wonder if I'm too much. There is a hush now that feels almost alive. It's not the kind of quiet that accuses, but the kind that waits. In that waiting, my breathing slows. My pulse, which had been a drumbeat of unfinished thoughts, begins to soften. I'm aware of how small the room feels, and how vast your presence feels inside it. I can sense my own fragility in a way that isn't shameful, a childlike smallness that feels held rather than exposed. In this dim light, my life doesn't look like a list of failures or victories, but like a single, unbroken story you have been walking through with me all along. That realization, even as a flicker, steadies me more than any tidy conclusion could. My mind wants to rush back to its usual loops, the calculations, the memories, the worst-case scenarios. But your nearness interrupts that spiral in a different way. Not with loud words, not with a command to stop thinking, but with a steady undercurrent of something deeper. It's like a tide moving beneath my thoughts, carrying me even as I keep trying to swim on my own. That tide whispers something softer than the sentences I've been reciting all day. It reminds me that not every wound needs immediate closure, not every question needs an answer at once, and not every weight is mine to hold forever. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it must look like from your side. You, outside of time, watching me clutch at pieces of my life as if they will disappear if I loosen my grip. You, patient as the ocean, waiting for the moment I'll let at least one fragment drift into your care. You're not annoyed at my slowness. You're not surprised by my need to cling. You understand that surrender for me is not a dramatic gesture, but a gradual unclasping. And so, you stay, steady as rock, waiting as long as it takes. I think of the nights when I've prayed with words that were more like bargains, promising to be better, stronger, more faithful, if only you would fix what hurt. Tonight, there is no bargain left in me, only the rawness of being human and a flicker of hope that it's enough. In this rawness, I begin to notice the way your presence feels, not sharp, not demanding, but like a deep well, a stillness that invites my whole self to lean in without fear of falling. In that stillness, memories surface, not to torment me, but to be acknowledged. Faces, moments, conversations I thought I had buried, the tension of years spent trying to be more than I am, the grief over things lost that I never mourned properly. Each memory is like a small stone pressing against my palm. For the first time, instead of squeezing harder, I let my hand open. The stones don't vanish. They just sit there, open to the night air, no longer hidden, and somehow that alone feels lighter. I realize that part of the weight I've been carrying is secrecy. The unspoken feeling that I must manage my pain privately so I don't burden anyone else, not even, but you, God. You are not anyone else. You do not flinch from my honesty. You do not recoil from my heaviness. You don't even rush to cheer me up. You simply sit in the quiet with me, and your patience is its own kind of healing. The room seems to shift as this awareness deepens. The shadows on the walls feel less like intruders and more like companions. The silence feels less like a void and more like a blanket. The night itself begins to seem like a witness, holding space for what I cannot yet release. And there you are, not at the edge, but right here, in the center. A new kind of prayer begins to form in me, not the kind that lists needs or demands outcomes, but the kind that acknowledges reality and invites. I don't even speak these sentences aloud. They rise and fall like waves inside me, and it's enough to know you hear them before I can shape them. It's enough to know that my prayer can be breath, silence, or even tears, that you read all of it fluently. A warmth settles over my chest, not dramatic, not cinematic, more like the slow thaw of ice after a long winter. My body, which had been braced, begins to trust the bed beneath me. My spirit, which had been scanning the horizon for danger, begins to trust your steady presence. Nothing outside this room has changed, and yet inside me, something is loosening. I don't know if this loosening will last past dawn. I don't know if I'll wake and find myself clenching again, but I know that for these moments, my heart is being shown another way of existing, a way that doesn't hinge on solving, but on surrendering, not as defeat, but as refuge. I picture again the weight I've been holding, not as a single heavy object, but as a bundle of threads wound too tightly. Each thread a fear, a memory, a responsibility, a dream. Some are bright, some are frayed. I don't try to separate them. I just picture them lying across your open hands. And in that image, I feel my own hands ease. I remember reading once that to rest is to trust the ground that holds you. Tonight, I think rest is also trusting the God who holds the ground. Trusting that even if my grip fails, even if my words falter, even if my faith flickers, you will not let me fall through. This trust is not loud. It's not even confident. It's just a willingness to be here, with you in the middle of the mess, to let the night be a sanctuary rather than a courtroom, to let my weakness be witnessed without verdict. And in that sanctuary, I begin to feel gratitude creep in, not forced gratitude, but the kind that rises naturally when you realize you are not alone. Gratitude that you don't measure my worth by my usefulness. Gratitude that you don't weigh my faith by my composure. Gratitude that tonight, in this quiet, you are here without conditions. So I breathe, slowly, deeply. Each inhale, a reminder I am still alive. Each exhale is surrender. I don't have to carry it all. I don't try to choreograph the breath into a perfect prayer. I just let it happen. And with each cycle, something of the day's heaviness leaves my body and moves into the silence where you are already waiting. If this is all prayer is tonight, breath, release, presence, let it be enough. If all I manage before sleep is this awareness that I'm held even now, let it be enough. Because, in the end, that is what I need. Not a flash of certainty, not a map for tomorrow, just the steady truth that I can stop striving for a moment and still be safe, that I can set the weight down and not be empty. Because you remain. Stay here with me, God, in this dim room, in this restless heart, in this fragile night. Hold the weight I can't put down and hold me inside it. And when my eyes finally close, let your nearness be the last thing I know. The silence after those emissions feels different than the silence before. It's not empty now. It carries the weight of what has finally been spoken, even if only in the quiet language of the heart. My breath comes less. My chest loosens. Nothing outside this room has changed. The bills are still unpaid, the questions still unanswered, the people I love still walking their own hard paths. But something inside has shifted. The heavy stone that sat on my ribs has become a river. It is still there, but it moves. It moves because you are here in it with me. I think about how each of those lines was not a demand, but a confession, not a list of grievances, but an unwrapping of self. Each one stripped away a layer of armor I didn't even know I was wearing, and in that stripping there is an unexpected dignity, not humiliation, but truth. It feels almost like standing barefoot on cool earth after a long day in heavy shoes. My soul can breathe again. Your presence in this quiet isn't dramatic. It's not a thunderbolt or a bright vision. It's more like gravity, constant, unseen, reliable. I lean toward it without even trying. This is what I wanted all along without having the words, not a miracle on command, not a perfect plan, but somewhere to lean where I will not be pushed away, a place to set down what is breaking me without being told to hurry up and heal. My thoughts drift to memories of carrying heavy things, boxes up a stairwell, furniture across a room. How the moment another person takes even one corner, the weight shifts, and suddenly it's possible. The burden doesn't disappear, but the balance changes. That's what this prayer feels like. You haven't erased my life, but you've stepped underneath it with me, changing the angle, taking some of the strain. I realize now that this is a kind of intimacy I don't know how to explain to anyone else. It's not loud, it's not public, but it is profoundly real. It's the intimacy of being seen without the mask, of being met in the very center of the ache. In that intimacy there is no scolding, no should, no performance review, only presence. And in presence there is relief. There are still parts of me that tremble, still reflexes that want to clutch everything back, to organize, to plan, to prepare. But each time the reflex comes, it meets a softness it didn't know before. The softness of your patience, the softness of my own permission to rest, like waves meeting a shore. The reflex loses momentum. My muscles learn a new language. I begin to notice small signs of life returning to places that felt numb. A tear that doesn't sting, a breath that feels full instead of shallow, a memory that surfaces without panic. These are not answers. They are traces, evidence that something inside me is being held safely enough to heal at its own pace. If anyone asked me what happened tonight, I wouldn't have a neat story to tell. I'd only be able to describe a room dimly lit, a body exhausted, a string of words whispered into the quiet, and a presence that made the room feel larger than its walls. Yet I know something real has happened, because the heaviness that once felt fused to my chest now feels like it has somewhere to go. I let my mind wander through the images of my day, one last time, not to analyze them, but to place them in your keeping. The email that stung, the conversation that left me doubting myself, the silent worry about someone I love, the decision that looms with no clear path. One by one, I picture them slipping from my hands into yours. They do not vanish, they simply change address. They are no longer stored inside me alone. And then deeper still, I think of the older weights, the griefs and guilts and longings I named a few minutes ago. They too have been laid out on the table between us, not hidden in drawers. Some will remain for a long time, some may never be fixed in the way I once imagined. But even that feels different now, because unfixed doesn't mean unheld. As this thought settles, my body follows, shoulders sink, hands unclasp. The air in the room feels softer. The sounds outside, a passing car, a dog barking far away, fade into a background hum. I feel small, but not insignificant, weary but not alone. I feel a quiet courage taking shape, the kind that isn't about rising up but about lying down without fear. I realize that the core of this prayer isn't about the weight at all. It's about the one who holds it, about daring to believe that even in my unfinished, unpolished state, I am safe enough to exhale, that my story isn't fragile in your hands, that my heart isn't too complicated for you to cradle. So I let the last of my words fall away. They've done their work. What remains is a simple resting. My head sinks into the pillow, but my spirit leans into something deeper than fabric, into you, into the mystery that has followed me all my life, quiet but persistent, patient enough to wait for this very moment. If I never find the right language for what is happening, let this be enough. I am not holding everything by myself anymore. The night can go on being dark, the world can go on being uncertain, but here, in this small slice of time, I know what it is to be carried. And as my eyes grow heavy, a different kind of trust begins to form, not the brittle kind, built on outcomes, but the soft kind, built on presence. It whispers that tomorrow can arrive in its own time, and I will meet it, not as someone crushed, but as someone held. That is the blessing I didn't know how to ask for. That is the mercy woven through this sleepless prayer. I don't try to end with a flourish. I don't reach for a final dramatic line. I simply rest here with a God who has been here all along, holding what I can't, holding me. If my breathing becomes my only prayer now, receive it. If my drifting into sleep becomes my act of faith, honor it. If all I manage tonight is this surrender, incomplete but real, let it be enough. Because in this room, on this night, with these hands finally open, it already is. There is something sacred about the way the night stretches longer when your soul is tired, not as a punishment, but as an invitation, an extension of time itself to make room for what I've avoided all day. The quiet truths I didn't want to hear, the pain I didn't know how to soothe, the questions that had no place in daylight conversations. It's here, in this unspoken hour, that I finally stop trying to shape my feelings into anything other than what they are. I stop searching for the perfect phrasing. I stop asking if I'm praying the right way. I let the unfinished edges of my heart lie against the presence I can't see. But trust is still here. I don't need to call you to come near. You never left, but I do need to let myself come undone in your nearness, which might be the harder task. It's one thing to be seen when I feel composed. It's another to let you witness the slow, quiet collapse that happens in me when the weight has been carried too long. There's no drama in it, just weariness, just surrender, just a moment of finally telling the truth without worrying how it sounds. Because the truth tonight is that I don't have answers, not for my life, not for anyone else's, not even for why I feel so heavy when nothing seems outwardly wrong. I carry small griefs I haven't named. I carry the loneliness of days that looked full but left me aching. I carry the quiet fear that maybe something in me is fading. Hope, maybe, or courage, or just the ability to keep smiling when my soul longs to rest. And yet, when I sink into this space with you, I find no judgment. You don't demand a list of reasons for my exhaustion. You don't question whether I've done enough to feel this tired. You simply draw closer. Or maybe you were already close, and I'm only now still enough to notice. Either way, I feel the hush settle around me like a blanket. I feel the permission to stop trying, to stop composing, to stop translating my ache into something productive. I don't want productivity tonight. I want to be held. There's a particular ache that comes from feeling like I should be better by now. Like I've done the inner work, asked the right questions, lit the candles, breathed deeply, journaled honestly, spoken to friends, whispered scripture, and still the weight remains. Still, I'll wake in the middle of the night with the tension in my chest. Still, I wonder why my heart hasn't healed in the time I thought it would take. But maybe healing isn't linear, because being human isn't linear either. Maybe some wounds resurface, not because I failed to move on, but because they still need kindness, not fixing, not erasure. Just kindness. Just acknowledgement. Just a hand, warm and without demand, resting over the place that aches and saying, yes, I know, it still hurts sometimes. That's what your presence is tonight. That hand, that hand, that hand, that voice, that steady, holy attention that doesn't try to teach or redirect or push, only to stay. And there is something in me that exhales differently under that kind of gaze. Something that softens without needing to explain. For the first time in hours, maybe days, I stop resisting the tears. They're not loud. They do not come with sobs. They slide down in silence, as if grateful for the chance to finally arrive. I don't try to interpret them. I don't ask what they mean. I let them fall, and in their falling, I feel something in me shift, not dramatically, not with fireworks, but gently, the way dew gathers on morning grass, slow, inevitable. Maybe the weight hasn't changed, but I have. Maybe what's shifting tonight is not the burden itself, but the belief that I must carry it alone. That belief has lived in me for a long time. I don't know where it started, perhaps in the years when being strong was praised, when composure was rewarded, when vulnerability was something to be managed. Over time, that belief became armor, and then the armor became habit. And now, I hardly notice when I'm bracing myself, preparing to endure, tensing up for the next thing. But you notice, you see the way my spirit curls in on itself. You see how even when my body rests, my soul stays alert, guarding, watching, holding. And you don't demand that I stop. You just keep being near. And that nearness, night after night, is slowly teaching my soul a new posture. One where I can be held without first having to explain myself. One where I don't need to be useful, to be beloved. I let myself imagine, for a moment, what you see when you look at me. Not a checklist of failures, not an incomplete to-do list, not an emotional mess, but a soul, a story, a person, still becoming, a beloved child, even here, even now, even in this quiet unraveling. And somehow, that image is enough to carry me a little further into rest. Not the kind of rest that fixes or completes, but the kind that lets me exist without effort, that lets me trust the bed to hold my body and you to hold what the bed cannot. I reach the part of night where thoughts no longer form in full sentences. They drift like smoke, impressions, fragments, flashes of memory. I don't chase them. I let them come and go, as if my mind knows it is safe to wander tonight. Safe, because you are here. Somewhere between wakefulness and sleep. I remember a time I dropped something heavy, physically, unexpectedly, and someone else caught it before it hit the ground. That small act saved me from injury. I didn't see coming. I think of you like that now, not a God who watches from a distance to see if I'll survive the weight, but one who steps in, silently, invisibly, catching what would have broken me had I been left alone. That image lingers, not as a sermon, not as a story I'll tell, but as a quieted truth I'll carry in my bones. You've caught so much already. The things I forgot to ask for help with, the fears I didn't say out loud, the nights I never named as too much. And tonight, you catch this too. This moment, this prayer, this soul asking again, please stay. And you do. You stay, not because I'm strong or good or faithful, but because you are. Because that's who you are. The one who holds what others walk away from. The one who lingers after everyone else has gone to sleep. The one who doesn't need eloquence to hear the heart. So, I will not craft a conclusion. I will not try to finish this with strength. I will simply let go, not of hope, not of trust, but of the need to carry everything all the way to the end. If you are holding it now, I don't need to keep clutching. Let that be the prayer tonight. Let that be the act of faith, not the words, but the release, not the insight, but the rest. And if my eyes finally close, if my body finally succumbs to sleep, may that sleep be my way of saying yes, yes to grace, yes to presence, yes to... The night feels almost endless, yet for the first time in a long while it does not feel hostile. It's like a long hallway lit by a single candle at the far end. And though the way is dim, the small flame keeps me from feeling lost. I have been walking this hallway for hours, not in my body, but in my thoughts, and somewhere between the darkness and that flame, something in me has softened. It's not a miracle. It's not a dramatic reversal. It's a slow, steady shift. The way seasons change while you're not looking. The way ice melts from beneath, and one day you realize the water is moving again. I find myself lying still, noticing the rhythm of my own breathing as though it belongs to someone else. My chest rises, my chest falls. The weight of the day that felt immovable a few hours ago has settled differently inside me. I am still aware of it, but it no longer presses with the same insistence. It sits like a bundle near me rather than a stone on me. I keep picturing your hands under it, steady, unfaltering, and that picture reshapes the feeling of everything. Sometimes I imagine you as a great stillness, sometimes as a gentle current, sometimes as a hand resting over mine. Tonight, you are all three, a stillness wide enough to hold my chaos, a current moving under my fatigue, a hand steadying my own. This is not a story I could tell with perfect sentences, but my body knows it. My nervous system feels it. Even my weary mind can sense it. A shift from gripping to allowing. All day long, I've been thinking about how to manage things, how to protect people, how to prepare for what's coming. It's exhausting to be on watch all the time. The habit is so deep it feels automatic. But here, in this dark room, I am allowed to stop scanning the horizon. There is no horizon here, only this moment. And in this moment, you are enough. That sentence alone feels like water to a thirsty mouth. You are enough. Not an idea, not a doctrine, a reality. Enough to hold what I can't. Enough to stay when I collapse. Enough to catch the pieces I can't name. Enough to be the ground under me when I'm too tired to stand. I think of the small things that made today heavy. Not just the obvious stresses, but the accumulation of little disappointments, little fears, little misunderstandings. The way they build like dust in corners until suddenly you can't breathe. And yet tonight, even the dust feels named. Nothing swept under the rug, nothing hidden, just here, spread out in the open air of your patience. And in that air, it loses some of its power. I do not need to turn this prayer into a plan. I do not need to end it with a resolution. The point tonight is not to close the loop, but to stay in the space where loops can loosen. To let the ache be what it is without letting it define me. To let your nearness be the one stable thing when everything else feels like shifting ground. It's odd. For years I thought surrender meant defeat. It sounded like giving up. Now I see it's more like leaning into a hammock, all that tension in your muscles because you're afraid you'll fall, and then slowly you realize the fabric is holding you, and the only way to feel held is to actually put your weight down. My soul has been hovering above that hammock for so long, clutching its burdens like a badge of honor. Tonight, at last, it's lying back, tentatively. But truly, I don't know how long it will last. I don't know if tomorrow's worries will feel heavier or lighter. But for this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, I am letting myself be held. I am letting myself believe that even if the night does not end, I am not alone inside it, that the God I am speaking to is not an idea, but an active presence in the room, in my body, in the very air I'm breathing. The candle at the end of the hallway flickers, but it does not go out. My eyelids grow heavier, but my heart feels lighter. I do not try to name every burden again. I simply rest in the knowledge that they are already named, already noticed, already held, that whatever I cannot put into words tonight is still understood, that my fatigue is not a failure, but a signal, and you have answered it not with a lecture, but with a lullaby of silence. If sleep comes now, let it be an act of trust. If my final thought is a fragment, a name, a sigh, a thank you, let that fragment be enough. If I wake in the night, let me remember even in the dark that you are still here, still holding, still patient. I do not have to pick the weight back up before dawn. I can meet the morning as someone who has been carried. This is not a grand ending. It is a quiet landing. It is a heart learning, slowly, that it does not have to hold itself upright all the time. It is the beginning of a different rhythm. Release, rest, presence. Over and over until it becomes as natural as breathing. And so I breathe again. In, out. No performance, no rush. Just life moving through me. Unforced, unhindered. As if my body has remembered something ancient. That being alive and being held can happen at the same time. Stay with me through this, God. Stay as the night folds in. Stay as my words dissolve into silence. Stay until the weight I can't put down becomes the weight you willingly carry, not as a problem to fix, but as part of the love you've chosen to give. The room is dark, but it no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like a cocoon, like a hidden space carved out for the soul to recover. All the noise of the day, the messages, the demands, the small cuts that became bruises, has receded beyond these four walls. What remains is a stillness that isn't empty at all. It hums with something alive, a quiet presence that doesn't need to speak to be understood. I am aware of how exhausted I am and how strange it is to feel a hint of peace inside exhaustion. My muscles ache, yet my heart has started to believe it is safe enough to soften. I let my eyes stay half closed. The images that drift across my mind aren't sharp, they're impressions. A smile I gave when I didn't feel like smiling. A word I didn't say because it would have been too heavy. A moment of holding back tears when I should have let them fall. One by one, they move past me like leaves on a stream. I do not grab them. I do not analyze. I just let them pass. In their passing, I notice a gentle shift. My body is learning that it doesn't have to grip every thought, every memory, every task. It can let go without losing itself. This letting go isn't dramatic. It's a slow, almost imperceptible uncurling, like a hand relaxing after gripping too hard for too long, like shoulders dropping inch by inch after hours of tension. It's small, but it's real. And in that smallness, I begin to sense you more clearly, not as a voice booming from above, but as a steady presence close enough to feel, like warmth in a cold room. There's no agenda to it, no instructions, no performance, just you being here, quietly, large enough to hold what I can't. For a long time I thought prayer was about fixing, about bringing my brokenness for repair. Now, lying here in the dim light, I realize it is also about being witnessed, about not having to hold the brokenness alone, about daring to believe that my unedited self is welcome. I don't have to package my worries neatly. I don't have to apologize for how long it's taking me to heal. I can simply place the weight, piece by piece, into the silence and trust that you receive it. Tonight, the weight feels less like a single burden and more like a constellation of small stones I've been carrying in my pockets. Each one represents something I've tried to control: a conversation, a memory, an expectation, an outcome. Some are smooth with familiarity, some are jagged with regret. I picture myself slowly reaching into each pocket, taking one stone out at a time and setting it down beside me, not throwing it away, not forgetting it, just not holding it anymore. As I do this in my mind, my body follows. My fists unclench. My jaw loosens. My breathing deepens. The room feels warmer, as though your patience itself has a temperature. This is not a quick fix. The stones are still there, but now they're spread out in the open rather than hidden inside me. They no longer press against my ribs. They no longer weigh down my steps. They're simply present, and so are you. I remember reading somewhere that trust is built in small, consistent acts. Maybe this is one of them. This nightly placing down of what I cannot carry. This slow learning that the world will not collapse if I stop holding it all for a moment. That you will not recoil from what spills out when I finally let go. That even if my prayers are just fragments, sighs or silence, they are enough to draw you near, because you were near already. The night outside is still and heavy, but the heaviness inside is changing. It's not gone. That's not the miracle. The miracle is that it's shared, that my heart, which felt like a clenched fist, now feels like an open palm, that my mind, which was buzzing, now feels like a quiet field under stars. I imagine you walking through that field, gathering the stones one by one, not to discard them, but to carry them with me until I'm strong enough to hold them differently or not at all. In that image, something inside me rests. The future remains unknown. The tasks remain undone. The griefs remain real. But the panic that told me I was alone has been silenced by presence. I feel it in my breath, in the slowing of my thoughts, in the way my heart stops bracing for impact. I am still here. You are still here. That is enough for this night. I turn slightly on the bed, feeling the fabric under my fingertips, the softness of the pillow against my cheek. These small sensations anchor me in the present. They remind me that my body is not an afterthought to this prayer, but part of it. As I allow my body to rest, I am also allowing my soul to rest. The two are not separate tonight. Both are being held. If my thoughts drift again before sleep comes, let them drift into gratitude, not forced, but natural, like exhaling. Gratitude for breath, gratitude for a presence that does not hurry me, gratitude for a God who holds weight without needing explanations, gratitude that even if nothing resolves by morning, this quiet hour has been a sanctuary. I don't need to end with perfect words. I don't need to summarize. I don't need to declare victory. I just need to stay here a little longer in the safety I've found. The safety that says my worth is not measured by my strength. The safety that says my heart can be fragile and still be loved. The safety that whispers through the dark, rest now, you are not alone. So I will let my eyes close without finishing every thought. I will let my breathing be my prayer. I will let the weight remain where I've set it, and if I wake before dawn, I will remember that this space still exists. This presence still stays. This holding is still true. God, hold the weight I can't put down. Hold me as sleep comes. Hold the parts of me I don't know how to comfort. Hold this night steady around me like gentle hands. And when morning arrives, whether my burdens are lighter or the same, remind me that the act of being held is already healing. The night has reached that strange hour when time feels suspended. Outside the streets are quiet and the sky leans closer to the earth. Even the shadows seem to rest. In this hush, I sense a depth beneath the surface of everything, like the moment before dawn when the whole world holds its breath. My own breathing has slowed to match it. The rise and fall of my chest no longer feels like an effort. It feels like a rhythm I'm part of, but not controlling. A rhythm that belongs to you. For so many nights, my prayers have been a tangle of requests, questions, and half-formed hopes. Tonight they are simply a laying down. Each thought, each memory, each feeling moves through me, and then settles into your presence like sand settling at the bottom of a river. Nothing is erased, but everything finds a resting place. I don't have to push it or hold it up. It drifts and finds its own level. This, too. I think about how tired my soul has been of carrying stories in silence. The stories I tell no one because they feel too small to matter or too heavy to share. Yet even in the silence of this room, I am not alone. The weight of these stories no longer presses against my ribs. It sits between us, seen without being judged. I realize that this is what I have longed for more than answers. A place where my hidden life can be witnessed without being rushed, where it can simply exist without shame. As I lie here, I remember the way my hands felt earlier, clenched without realizing it, as though gripping invisible threads. Now slowly, they loosen against the sheets. It's a physical act, but it feels spiritual, too, like a sign to my own heart that it's safe to release. This small gesture says what my words can't. I don't need to hold everything together tonight. I notice the way your presence fills the room without spectacle. It's not a spotlight, it's a steady glow. It's not a speech, it's a quiet companionship. You don't rush to rearrange my feelings. You let them be. And somehow, by letting them be, they shift, like knots loosening without being pulled. Like frost melting simply because the sun has been near long enough. There's an image rising in me now, a table covered with all the things I've been holding, worries, memories, hopes, disappointments. They're not sorted or categorized, they're just there, and you're seated across from me, not as a judge, but as someone who came to share the meal. You reach out and touch each item gently, not to take it away immediately, but to acknowledge it. That simple act changes how I see the whole table. It's no longer a pile of burdens, it's a landscape of my life, held in a gaze that is patient enough to sit with it. In that image, I'm not embarrassed anymore. The shame of too much dissolves. I don't feel like a problem. I feel like a person being gently accompanied through a hard night. That companionship is not loud, but it is weighty, heavier, even than my burdens, and yet not oppressive. It's the weight of someone staying. I think of how often I've confused strength with self-sufficiency. How often I've believed that being faithful meant never faltering. Lying here, I see that faith might be the opposite, allowing myself to falter, to soften, to be small in the presence of a love that does not shrink back. It's not dramatic. It's not a heroic act. It's a quiet permission. It's a whisper to my own heart. You can stop now. You're still held. The longer I rest in this, the more the night itself becomes a kind of prayer. The creak of the walls, the distant hum of the city, even my heartbeat, all of it feels woven into a single chorus that says, "You're not alone." And for the first time in days, I start to believe it, not just with my mind, but with my whole self. Nothing is solved. Nothing is wrapped up. Yet the heaviness has changed its texture. It's like a blanket now, not a stone. It still covers me, but it doesn't crush. And beneath it, there is warmth. Beneath it, there is breath. Beneath it, there is the steady truth that I am not carrying this alone. If I drift into sleep now, let it be as though I am lying down, not just on a mattress, but in the very palms of your hands. Let the act of closing my eyes be my final surrender. Let the rhythm of my breath be my yes to your presence. And if I wake before dawn, let the memory of this night, not the words, but the felt sense of being held, remain like a quiet ember in my chest, an ember I can carry into the day, reminding me that I don't have to pick the weight up the moment my feet touch the floor, that I can move slowly, that I can ask for help, that I can breathe. God, stay with me in this. Hold what I cannot. Hold me inside what I cannot. And let this night be more than an intermission. Let it be a seed of trust, of gentleness, of a different way of being. This is not the end of the story. It's a small, sacred pause. And for tonight, that's enough. There is a point in every night when even the smallest noises take on a different character. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft movement of air through a vent, the creak of wood beneath the weight of the house. They stop sounding like distractions and start sounding like evidence of life continuing around me. That is what this moment feels like. Evidence of life continuing even while I lie here, exhausted with my eyes half closed. Evidence that not everything depends on me being awake, vigilant, or strong. The world keeps breathing. The night keeps unfolding, and somewhere in the midst of it, I too am being kept. I'm realizing how much of my exhaustion comes from believing I have to hold everything together at all times. Not just my responsibilities, but my composure, my faith, my hope. It's like a low-grade tension always humming in the background. And here, now, in this quiet hour, that tension has nowhere to hide. It rises to the surface as a tired ache across my shoulders, a heaviness behind my eyes. But as soon as I name it, something shifts. Naming it isn't fixing it. It's letting it breathe. It's giving it a place to exist other than my clenched heart. Your presence in this room feels less like an interruption and more like an atmosphere. Not a sudden arrival, but a steady, patient nearness that has been here all along, waiting for me to stop moving long enough to notice. It doesn't come with a lecture. It doesn't come with a plan. It just is. And somehow, that just is enough to start unraveling the tightness in me. Like a knot that starts to loosen simply because it's been touched with care instead of pulled in frustration. I think back over the parts of my life that have taught me to brace myself. Situations where tenderness wasn't safe, where needs were met with silence or dismissal. Over time, I learned to carry more than my share, to speak less of what hurt, to make myself useful instead of needy. Those lessons kept me going then, but now, in your presence, they've become weight. They've become habits that no longer serve me. And tonight, for a moment at least, I can feel them lifting. Not gone, but lighter. Not erased, but recognized, and therefore less sharp. It's a strange kind of courage, this laying down. The courage not to push through, not to pretend, not to build a wall of words around my pain. The courage to say, I can't hold this by myself, and then to actually believe that someone is listening, that you are listening, that you're not only listening, but staying, that you're not only staying, but holding. I don't try to picture the future right now. I don't try to predict what I'll feel in the morning. I let my thoughts stay small. The texture of the blanket under my fingers, the cool air against my cheek, the slow, steady beat of my heart. These are the things anchoring me. These are the places where your presence meets me without language. These are the signs that it's okay to rest. I know there are still things unresolved, decisions waiting, people depending on me, work undone. But I also know that those things will still be there tomorrow, and I will meet them as a person who has been held, not as a person who has been abandoned to her own strength. That small difference matters. It's what lets me breathe deeper even before sleep comes. You are not a God of quick fixes, but of slow faithfulness. You do not rush me out of the night. You do not force me into cheerfulness. You sit with me until my breathing changes, until my heart stops clenching, until my body begins to trust that it's safe enough to rest. That is more healing than any instant answer. It's not spectacular. It's steady, and steady is what I need. So here, at this hour when even the city's heartbeat has slowed, I whisper the simplest prayer I have. Hold what I cannot, not just tonight, but in all the ways I don't yet know how to release. Hold the pieces of me I've hidden even from myself. Hold the longings I don't have words for. Hold the fatigue that goes deeper than my bones. Hold the tiny flicker of hope I'm afraid to believe in. Hold me. I let that prayer sit in the air between us, unfinished, unpolished. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be true. And as it sits there, I feel the room shift again, not physically, but in the way the atmosphere softens. My heartbeat steadies. My hands grow warm. My eyes grow heavy. These are small signs, but they tell me something real is happening. I am being held. If sleep comes now, let it be my act of trust. If it doesn't, let the quiet itself be my act of trust. Either way, let this night be a space where I am not carrying everything alone. Let it be a seed of something deeper, a way of living where I remember, even in daylight, that being held is always an option. This isn't a grand conclusion. It's a gentle landing. It's the point where words run out and presence remains. It's me lying here with open hands, breathing slowly, whispering to the quiet. Somewhere in the stillness, something in me has changed. Not loudly, not in a way I could name to anyone else, but undeniably. It's not that the weight has disappeared. It's still here. The grief still breathes. The uncertainty still hovers, but it no longer owns the air I breathe. It no longer gets the final word. And that has everything to do with how you are choosing to be near, not as a rescuer who kicks in the door, but as a quiet presence that sits down beside me without demanding anything in return. I never realized how deeply I longed for a love that didn't flinch when I stopped performing. So much of my life has been about holding composure, managing perception, adjusting my voice to match the room. Even in my prayers, I've tried to sound certain, to phrase my requests properly, to show you that I'm strong enough to be helped. But tonight, there's nothing left to shape. I've run out of polished language. What's left is what's always been underneath, the honest, the frayed, the raw. And you haven't turned away. You haven't asked me to reword anything. You haven't corrected my posture or my theology. You've just remained. And in that remaining, I am beginning to believe something that frightens me in its beauty, that I don't need to be strong for you to stay, that you are not invested in my capacity, you're invested in my reality. I think about that word, reality, and how little space I give it. I spend so much energy trying to turn my reality into something else, a better version, a braver one, a cleaner, more resolved story. But you are not afraid of what is. You meet me exactly where I am, and not as a starting point for improvement. You sit with me in the middle of the fog, and you don't ask for anything in return. That's what makes me want to open my hands again. Not because I'm forced to, but because I'm loved enough to. There's a quiet safety in this kind of presence. It doesn't press. It doesn't advise. It doesn't push forward. It simply holds. And when I am honest with myself, I realize that's what I've needed more than anything. Not answers, not clarity, not even solutions. Just someone to see me at my heaviest and say, I'm not going anywhere. This weight I keep referring to is not a single thing. It's layered. It's woven into moments I've never told anyone about. The pressure to keep going when I had nothing left. The unspoken fears that trail behind my footsteps. The grief I carry for versions of myself I had to abandon too early. The guilt for not knowing how to fix what others expect me to fix. The fatigue of being the strong one for people who never asked if I needed support too. I've carried it all as if it were mine alone to bear. Maybe because I didn't know you would want to carry it with me. Maybe because I thought you only helped once the mess was manageable. Maybe because no one ever taught me that prayer could sound like silence, like breath, like a body lying still in the dark and not saying a word. But I know now. At least I'm starting to. There's a kind of worship in this letting go. Not loud, not public, not even visible, but sacred nonetheless. It's the kind of worship that happens when my hands stop clinging, when my spirit stops negotiating, when my pain stops trying to justify itself. And in that unclenching, you make room, not for control, but for rest, not for performance, but for presence. I feel it in my breath again, that slow rise and fall, that unforced rhythm. I realize how many days I've lived disconnected from my own breathing, rushing from task to task, carrying the world on shoulders that were never meant to hold this much. But here, in this small pocket of night, I feel like a human being again. Not a role, not a task list, not a source of answers for other people, just a soul, lying quietly in the care of a presence that does not need me to earn belonging. I could fall asleep now, I might, but even if I don't, even if my thoughts continue to wander and my body remains restless, I know something has shifted. I've stopped carrying the illusion that I'm alone. I've let go, even if just for tonight, of the myth that I'm the last line of defense against chaos. You are never asking me to be my own protector. You've been here the whole time, the ground beneath my tired feet, the echo behind every breath I didn't realize was prayer. Let this be enough, not a resolution, not an answer, just enough. Enough to remind me I'm not abandoned. Enough to begin again tomorrow without the pressure to be whole by sunrise. Enough to rest inside your hands even while the questions remain unanswered. And if I wake again in a few hours, let this sense of being held remain, not as a feeling, but as a truth. Let it be embedded somewhere deeper than my thoughts, somewhere I can return to without needing to reconstruct it every time. That word stays with me now, long after my prayer has faded into breath. It stays even as I begin to close my eyes. It stays even as the world outside turns in its sleep.